we made it. I'm so surprised. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming. As a bonus, I have a clicker, right? Because I came here without clicker, so at least it's not as bad. I'm super happy to see so many of you, and I'm super happy that you were hoping that it will work, and you didn't change the room, even though there are super cool talks happening also in the other rooms, like too many cool talks at the same time. Good. We are going to talk not about new super cool Spring Boot or Spring Cloud features, not how to develop your applications in a better way, but rather how to clean the mess that not you, but other developers do, right? And we start with setting up the stage, as Tom said yesterday. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology in US, 20 years ago, made a report, and they figured out that software bugs and errors cost US economy $59 billion. I had no idea that such institute even exists, and I have no idea also how they come up with this number. But 59 billion is quite a lot of money, and this is like 59 billion cost the stuff that we should do actually right, but we do it wrong. So like our mistakes cost 59 billion, or mistakes of our parents, because this is a 20 years old report. And 59 billion, to put it into perspective, it's I don't have my notes, so it's a little bit tricky, but it's like 136% of Twitter and 96% of VMware, as far as I remember. It was a joke. Anyway, so this report it's 20 years old, so you can make a point that it will totally make sense that these numbers are not valid anymore, because as an industry we evolved, like significantly, right? We have like a solid quality assurance team. We have super sophisticated testing frameworks. We have these, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but test environments on demand. Like when you make a pull request, it spins up new containers, new Kubernetes clusters, so you can take test each change in isolation. We have also canary releases, where once we at least believe that the application is bug-free, then it goes to production, but only to like a small portion of users or small portions of requests. And then once it performs well, then it gets propagated to the rest of the user. So like theoretically, we have all the tooling we need to deploy bug-free applications. It's obviously not the case, and there is a report that it's like only 1 year old, so probably more relevant, made by a company called Rollbar. And they made a survey among developers, and they came up with some interesting stats. Like that the 37% of developers spend more than 25% of their time just fixing bugs. So it's like 25% is a day and 2 hours. But like 6% are spending like up to 20 hours a week. So half of the week for fixing bugs. That's definitely quite a lot, right? And these developers say that they were frustrated, overwhelmed, burnt out. And burnout is a serious thing, like it leads to depression. So it's like probably not something you should do. And they also did like some ridiculous stats, like 20-something% would prefer to go to the dentist instead of fixing bugs, or spend their time with in-laws, which apparently is like a one of the worst thing a person can do. I don't know, maybe. So, like, why don't we come up with a concept that we just don't do bugs? We have no bugs. Like we have no estimates, there is a movement, no estimates, so let's make a movement, no bugs. There are two ways to get to this point that we have no bugs. Like one point is that we can just prevent bugs from happening. And there are multiple techniques how we can get there. Like one is that we follow the TDD, so that test-driven development, right? So that we build the thing right. We start with tests, so we don't write production code without tests. That means that everything is tested. Should be no bugs. And it's of course not true. We can do BDD, so we build the right thing. So first we First, we actually think what we want to build, and then we start building, not the other way around, how it usually is. We do integration testing with frameworks like test containers, so we use the real databases, real messaging queues. We do automated UI testing with Selenium or other cool testing frameworks that probably I'm not even aware of. But it's still, still bugs will still happen. So the next step is that we just have to fix these bugs faster once they happen. And because there are so many different definitions of bugs, so for me or for the rest of this talk, bug is an application error that happens in production that is preventing user from doing what he wanted to do, or at least makes it more difficult. And if you don't have a proper tooling in place, when the bug happens, this is one of the possible scenarios. I think it's quite often this is what happens. So the user experiences a bug, and he's a little bit surprised why this is not really working. But he waits a bit, he tries to do it again. And if it doesn't work after some time, and he's doing something important, like uploading a photo, then he gets angry, right? So he gets angry, and then he calls the support, or he creates a ticket in your support system. And support is a group of very nice people trained to be nice, right? So they reply we can help you, and of course we will tell our developers or ops people or whoever is responsible for fixing it, and it will be fixed immediately. So the developers got a ticket, and they start working on it. But bugs are not easy to reproduce. They are not easy to fix. So it just takes time, right? And this guy gets angry, and he's a Twitter influencer. So he posts it on Twitter. People retweet it because many people also experience it. So these tweets go viral. The reputation goes down of the company, of course. And we are still fixing the bug, right? Because we can't really reproduce it. And the user tries it again. He cannot upload this photo, so he's super angry. He calls the support, and support, they have already received 500 phone calls like this, so they are in the end also quite pissed. This is pretty much story of me, except I didn't tweet about it, trying to make an international transfer from Germany with one of the famous banks, cool ones. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? If we use proper tooling, this whole scenario could look totally different. Except the beginning, right? Because the user is still the uploading photo doesn't work. But as soon as it doesn't work, we are notified, right? We get an alert. Oh, we are woken up in the middle of the night if we are unlucky, right? But the thing is that we know it as soon as it happens. He doesn't even have to call support because we already start working on it. Oh, sorry. Whoa, this cat was supposed to move. And it didn't. And now it does. So we are fixing the bug. We know how to reproduce it. And the user is happy, right? Because the photo is uploaded. He's a happy customer. Nobody tweets about it. And the whole bug was not a big deal, right? Because bugs just happen. But to make this a reality, this cat has to have enough context about the issue so that he can reproduce it and fix it. And also, he has to have this notification as soon as it happens, which is not really nice. Has any one of you do OCD, on call duty? Where everyone, oh yeah, some people get woken up during the night, so that's why you are here, I imagine. Because it's quite fun, actually, also. Sometimes when you have a challenge in the middle of the night. All right, so when the bug happens for Java developers, right? This is more or less what represents the bug in production. We have this long stack traces. This one is actually pretty short. The point is just that there's a lot of noise. Oh my God, why do I even have to read it, right? And most likely I don't. The stuff that is actually important for me is what is the exception type, what was the message, and when did it happen in my application? And sorry that I speak so fast, but I have to hurry up because, Okay, but we don't know still. So we know where to go to the code, but we don't know which user was affected. Is it an important user or maybe not so important user? Could be a premium user, or not premium user, could be a CEO of the company. You don't know. You don't know which request caused this issue or which app version was deployed at the time, just in case you are actually not reacting immediately, but maybe after a couple of days. And we also don't know what happened before, so what has led to this issue, which could be critical to actually approach it. So in the code, when we try catch an exception, it's fine to fall asleep also. I know these were like tough 2 days. So we log it with a logging framework like logback, and we got this. So now, if we want to put some more context into it, we can use the MDC, which is exactly a context. So we can put some extra information that will get attached to every log message, and then if we modify the layout for logback, then when an exception happens, we get this extra information. And this is already pretty cool, right? Because we can put whatever, this MDC is like a bucket, like a map, so we can put whatever we need. Depending on application, we can put there like, request data or what have you. But parsing these text messages is pretty tough. Like if you have to do it like with your brain, it's very tough. If you want to do it with regex, it's even tougher. So you can use something like structured logging. So you add a log stash appender or encoder, you configure it, and instead of this text message, you just get the JSON. And with this JSON in place, if you flush these logs into some log aggregation platform, and this log aggregation platform is quite smart, then probably you can query it, and so on. So there are like some steps that you can make to make it easier, but you still don't really have the story about what has happened before that has led to this issue. Because the story that we add some debug logs, we add some info logs, like especially if we don't know what is happening in our code, then we add a lot of debug logs, which are very helpful, but they are not that helpful in production. Because in production, you often run just the error level, so you don't have these logs in production. So actually, you go to logs, you see nothing. You have to go and change the logging level, redeploy this application, and wait for it to happen again. So this sucks a bit. So there is a tool that basically simplifies all of this stuff that I have just mentioned, that you don't have to do these difficult steps, and it does it pretty much for you. And this tool is, of course, called Sentry. When you go to sentry.io, so the website, you see that Sentry is like error tracking and performance monitoring tool, and you also see the pricing over here. But just to make it clear, this is not like a marketing talk. I'm not here to sell Sentry. Sentry is open source, and you can deploy it in your data center, Kubernetes cluster, whatever. Like all the sources and instructions are there. So you can just choose your adventure. If you want to use the SaaS version and not worry about maintaining Sentry, or you can just do it yourself, or if you have like a strong ops team, then you can delegate it to someone else, which is usually the best. Okay, and now we have a couple of minutes to show how actually Sentry works and how to use it with Spring Boot. So I built an application, which is the not so sophisticated distributed system. There is a front-end React application, and probably it doesn't really work now. I have to start it because and let's hope that all of this will still work. Okay, of course it didn't. It didn't because it's a sophisticated distributed application. Yeah, but not yet. So the thing is that I'm at this stage, I'm very unaware of Sentry, right? And I struggle. So you see, I struggle a lot. But now my Docker Compose is up. This is running. This is not running. So this very complex distributed system is a React application that makes HTTP requests to one Spring Boot application. And this, okay, just to name it. So this is a front-end app. It makes a calls to a movie service that returns a list of movies that are in the in the database, and this movie service gets the rating for these movies from another service. So it also makes an HTTP call, and this rating service also uses RabbitMQ for some irrelevant reasons, to be honest. But it is just like that. If we have time, I will show you why. Okay, and this app is buggy, right? This is like the worst. So there is a 33% of chances that when I click load movies, this will actually fail. Oh, 33% seems to be a lot. Yeah? Okay, and this rating service is also made to be very slow. So I pick the movies that I like. Not sure if you share my opinions, but the rating is random. Good. Okay, but when this error happens, oh my God, what is happening here? Oh no, sorry. So when this error happens, what do we have? We have this business exception in our logs, like so something you are, I think you are familiar with. I'm very familiar with seeing exceptions in logs. So now we want to centrify it. I mean, I made up this name, right? We want to integrate it with Sentry. So I go to sentry.io and I create a project. And the first cool thing about Sentry is that it's not really Java specific. There's nothing Java specific about it. It was actually made by Python folks. But it integrates with whatever you pretty much want. So it has support for browser technologies, backend technologies, mobile stuff, serverless, even desktop, like whatever you need, Sentry is there. And it seems like maybe this is irrelevant, but it's actually pretty cool because whatever application you have in your company or in your project, they can all report bugs to one place. And since bugs are often somewhat correlated, I mean the errors, then it's quite handy, right? In our case, we choose Spring Boot. We name it as a movies service, and we can choose the team. So the poor guys that will be notified when something happens. And we create a project, and then we get like a relatively simple guide on how to add Sentry to your project. Do you see the font is big enough in the back? No, it's not big. No, it's good. Okay, let's make it bigger. I don't know if it won't be too big for me. Is it good now? Good. Okay. Whoa. All right. So I am going to add a Sentry Spring Boot starter. So that's the first thing that I have to do. And then there is a tiny snippet to copy to application.properties. This we can for now remove. The important part is the Sentry DSN. What is the DSN? I had to Google it today. I don't know why they don't call it just API key. That's like an API key. So this is not something that you should probably add to your source code repository, but rather fetch from environment variables or whatever system that provides the configuration. And when I integrate Sentry for the first time in the project, I like to turn on the debug logs because it often happens that I just made some mistake and it doesn't work. So I like to see that it actually sends some data to Sentry. Let me pull up my notes just in case. Okay, so now we have this 33% of chances that it will fail. It already failed like 3 times in a row, so our probability is not that good. I should change it, right? To 50 maybe. There, yeah. Okay, so now it failed. Like, definitely it did fail. And if I scroll up, I still see this exception that was logged. but I also see the debug logs, and I see that there was a serialized object, and at the very, very bottom, I see that envelope was flushed. So everything that Sentry does, it puts it into the envelope, and the envelope is actually sent to Sentry server. So now, if I go back to Sentry, and I go to projects, choose the movie service, what is that? No, I go to issues, and I choose movie service. It's waiting for events. I mean, this should work. You know, Sentry also has issues sometimes. Because it goes to some ingestion pipeline, right? And probably there is a Kafka, and it's made in Python, and like who makes professional applications with Python? I mean, this was sent. Oh, it's like the worst day. So this error happened like once. Let's invoke it more times. I mean, it happened already twice, but okay. So now it happened at least twice. So the Sentry UI looks very different from whatever log aggregation platform you've used, right? It looks more like some sort of a backtracker, maybe like Jira or something like this. But when the error happens, it gets added here as an entry. And if it happens more than once, you will not see more entries of it, but it will rather increase here the number of events. And it's, of course, a good question why it doesn't increase it right now. But I think eventually it will. 17 seconds. Oh, you use Sentry? CloudWatches. No, it's usually 17 seconds. So I've done it like 1 hour ago, so I'm quite surprised that it doesn't send it right now. But I mean, there must be just something wrong. Anyways, the number of events over here will increase. So even if you deployed something super buggy and you have heavy traffic application, you will not suddenly see like 20 pages of issues, but rather, for each individual issue, they will be aggregated in the cluster. And now, if I go into details, you will see a lot of stuff that can be at the beginning especially overwhelming. They are sometimes also overwhelming for me. About the exception, right? So you see a lot of context that has happened. So we can see what browser was used that triggered this exception, which JVM version was running it, and this is the user's operating system. So this matters especially for some front-end related bugs. You also can see on which environment did it happen. We didn't set it to production, but that's something that can be set in application properties. There are like lots of stuff how you can configure Sentry. So we can say that this is staging, and then the bugs will be reported as a staging environment. And one very cool stuff is that you can you also see the release version, so the version of your application that was deployed. And I believe that not many people actually use like the regular versions like 1.0 when you deploy an application. Most of us just have a snapshot and go. If you have in your project this little plugin that generates Git metadata, like this that's something that is just recommended also by Spring Boot. So this is the Maven plugin, and then there's also a Gradle plugin. And during build time, it generates a properties file with a git commit ID. So we pick this git commit ID, and we know that, okay, so this was it's like quite easy to locate which commit actually introduced this problem. And now, this is our exception. So this is like an equivalent of seeing the stack trace, except it's decluttered from all the rubbish that you don't need, at least you don't need initially. So we have the type of exception, we have the message, and we have also the stack trace, but the stack trace is just limited to our package. And we take the package from the class annotated with a Spring Boot application. If you have more packages, this is also configurable. You may also want to switch to see the full stack trace, and if you want to have something copy-pastable, then this is like the regular exception. And if you scroll down, this is like the interesting part starts, you see all the data about the HTTP request. So you can see the headers. If it would be a post request, you can also configure it to attach a request body, depending on how big the body actually is. And to the point that you can copy-paste the curl command and reproduce the issue. And it looks so good. It's actually not, it doesn't work exactly like that, right? Because like if there is an authenticated call, we don't attach the authentication headers. So you have to modify it a little bit, but it gets very, very close to being able to reproduce this issue. And actually, I forgot to mention, because this super sophisticated distributed system has authentication. So when I click load movies, it actually attaches, it does the basic HTTP authentication. And on the right-hand side, you have tags, and tags are something that is searchable. So if you want to search for issues that happened only in production, then you can just search for environment.production. Yeah. So if I refresh it, I'm wondering if number of events will actually increase here. And it doesn't. And it's not really a good sign. Okay. So it would be nice if we could get also some more information about the user. But user information is this personal identifiable information. You may not always attach it to events, like especially if you send it outside of your data center. But in some cases, you can. But this is like an opt-in feature. So if we do Sentry send default PII, or PII since personal identifiable information, it will automatically take the principal from Spring Security context and attach the user ID and also the IP address of a user in case you want to find him. And you can also configure it in a, like, yes, thank you. You can also configure it programmatically in case you want to attach more information. Configuration. So let's create a class, Sentry configuration. And this will be like a regular Spring Boot configuration class. And boom, and we have a user provider. So we have now a custom code that attaches some extra information to the user. So we can fetch the username, we can set the email. There's also just you can set others, so you can set whatever you pretty much want that will help you to either fix an issue or at least decide if this issue is important or if it's not important. Let me go back and show you how how the exception actually look like. So we are triggering a business exception to make it look like it's a real application. And this business exception has a business process code. But this business process code is not really attached to the stuff that we sent to Sentry, because we, like in our SDK, we just don't know what's in your exception, and we don't do any reflection magic or anything like that. But we can also customize the Sentry integration to attach to events pretty much whatever we need. And in this case, this would be like attaching this business process code to a Sentry event. And this is done through an event processor. So every event that gets sent to Sentry goes through some processing pipeline, and then we can define like multiple event processors that will just do some stuff to the Sentry event. So in this case, we check like, oh, if this is a business exception, then just take this code and set it on tags, set it on context, and set it on extra. And basically these three different items, depending on which one you choose, it will appear in the different part of the UI. And as I said, like tags are important because they are searchable. So now I will restart this application, trigger this exception again. And we will see what happens. But let's do it in a second. Even when we have all of this information, there is still this one question that it's not answered. What happened before? So we have this info logs, we have debug logs. We don't see it anywhere. But it would be nice to actually have them. At the same time, we don't want to send all the info and debug logs to Sentry because this will probably like consume our credits, or at least it would generate like significant amount of network traffic. So there is another way to do it. We have to add an integration with logback. And so we add a dependency to Sentry logback. Restart it. And surprisingly, that's it. We don't have to create logback XML file, and we also don't need to configure anything. I mean, if we are happy with defaults, of course. So now let's trigger this exception, and let's hope that it will appear in Sentry. Okay. So we see that the envelope was flashed, and this should auto refresh. Like, have you seen if I have done anything wrong? You mean the Sentry integration? Of course. Of course, you cannot break it, right? It's unbreakable. So all the events are sent in the background. Very good question, thank you. So all the events are sent in the background. So they are queued up to, by default, 30 events. You can also configure it over here. So the max queue size, it will of course consume some RAM memory. But if we reach the limit, they will be just dropped. But the thing is, they are sent to Sentry, because if they wouldn't be, we wouldn't have this envelope sent successfully. And I'm surprised to the point that maybe someone can check on Twitter if Sentry has some issues. No, we don't need to set the sample rate for. We don't need to set the sample rate for exceptions. We do have to do it for the performance stuff. You know what? Let's give it a try. Do I have 5 minutes left? This is not good. According
to status.sentry.io, all systems are operational.
Yeah. Let me comment this. not really. No, but it's flushed. It's there. Like if it would be not sent, then we wouldn't see it. I am at this point. I am sure that it actually reached Sentry.io, and they on their side have also their queue, like Kafka Stream or whatever that process it. No, these are some old stuff, unfortunately. Yes. Yeah, I even recreated the project right now, just to make sure that nothing there was really messed up. It goes awesome. I don't know why I was even stressed. I mean, we have some issues over here. Okay. So, the point is that all these logs, info logs and debug logs, get added here as a breadcrumbs. So imagine that you see here all the info and debug logs that are attached to an event only when the event actually happens and when it reaches Sentry. Imagine that there is also a section here with a user information with whatever information we attached, and you will have to imagine a lot of stuff now. Because even if the application is bug-free, it doesn't really mean that it performs well. So Sentry is also a performance monitoring platform, and it automatically measures the time that it takes to process the requests. But if the errors don't get sent, I would be very surprised if actually we'll see any transactions over here. Okay, so I will very quickly do some interesting stuff. So if I go back to Sentry and go to performance section, and choose movie service 2, we won't see much. I will just show you the other one that apparently worked somehow before, because this is like it was running. So every HTTP request gets added as a transaction, and then transaction can be broken down into smaller spans. But I mean, this one is not really prepared for that. So yeah, so you pretty much see this broken down into pieces. You see the JDBC queries, HTTP client request, a lot of cool stuff that just doesn't really work now. I hope so. Yeah, the demo was awesome, right? Yeah. Good. So we have this Spring MVC integration, Spring Security, REST template. We have also web client, logback. We have some very cool AOP stuff. And you can also, with Sentry transaction, you can instrument this RabbitMQ integration that was there. We also do the tracing for JDBC, GraphQL Java, so it will also work with Spring for GraphQL, and these couple of other libraries that you potentially may want to use, or at least some people do use. And the right question to ask would be if there are any cons of using Sentry. There is no Webflux support. There is some support, but it's not yet there, I would say. So, and then if there is a performance overhead, not really, because we send it in the background, so it does not really affect the request that comes in. But if you use the performance feature, so you send these traces to Sentry, and you set it like to set 100% or high percentage or high amount of sentries, then of course it goes over the wire. So if you are in a public cloud where you pay for the transfer costs, then you have to take it into account. But most likely you will not send 100% of traces, so I don't think it is a big deal. So you should go to Sentry docs and see how to do all the stuff that I tried to do and they didn't work. And And then, if they don't work, you can go here and report an issue, or ideally, you can also fix this issue. And yeah, so this would be it. Thank you, and